All right. Okay. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk About Children's Books. My name is Elena, and I work here at Fairfax County Public Library. During this presentation, please make sure to turn off your videos and stay muted unless you are the speaker. We will have a Q&A session at the end of our author presentation, so please enter any questions or comments into the chat. This program will be recorded and available on the library's website. So you may be wondering, what are indie authors and why do we celebrate Indie Author Day? An indie author is someone who self-publishes in order to reach as many readers as possible and grow a profitable author publishing business. So our annual Indie Author Day event, it's a very special event for libraries and their readers because it allows us to meet and celebrate achievements of our local and indie writers. Today, we have a wonderful panel of writers to share their experiences as children's writers. I would like to introduce Corrinne Callins, author of A Day in the Life of a Shoe, Gary Garner, author of Ollie and Molly Meet Santa, Evelyn Huckleberry, author of Picklepenny Wonders and Wanders, Etaine Raphael, author of Rhymetime Twins, Words Take Flight, and Lawanda Warden, PhD, author of He Looks Like Me. We also have Charlotte Yakovleff, author of The Tale of Lumpy Love, Melonhead-A, Lucky Dog. So welcome everyone. So let's get started. So our first question, tell us about yourself. Corrinne Callins, would you like to let us know a little bit more about you and your process of writing?
Sure. Hi, everybody. So a little bit about me. I write and plan communications full-time. I do have a full-time job outside of writing children's books, and I enjoy both. In terms of my writing process, wow, inspiration can come to me from anywhere. I write a lot of nonfiction, so a lot of times my inspiration comes from learning something new. For instance, my book, Moja and the Lion, which I'll show you right here. I got inspiration for writing that story from when I was visiting Botswana, and my family and I went to on a game drive, and I was doing some research and learning just about the different animals that I might see, and I saw this story about an actual lion cub named Moja, who lived with his mom. They had no pride, and from there decided to write a book.
Wonderful, thank you. What about you, Gary? Can you tell us some about yourself?
Yeah, I've been writing books for the last couple of years. I've written a lot of articles when I used to be in government, mostly technical and articles. But a background, I grew up in Florida, enjoyed skin diving and golf and flying. And so it was a lot of fun. And looking for work, I came up to Washington. An opportunity presented itself at the Department of the Treasury. So I went to work there, got to work on advanced projects and different futuristic intelligent devices on their impact on federal financial systems. And then I all of a sudden got involved in children's books. Is my son and his wife, they always got involved in rescue dogs. And going home one evening in Atlanta, December 1st, a cold, wet, wintry morning, she found a dog at about 5 o'clock coming home in traffic. That a car stopped on the highway, door open, a couple things were thrown out, car sped up. And she approached, she saw there were 2 small puppies. And they scurried off into this trailer park. And she turned the car around and went, and it was ice cold and just horrible. And she couldn't find the dog. She heard a little whimpering. So she drove home, got my son, and they came back and they searched. They couldn't. They came back the next morning. They found the 2 puppies huddled in a little woodshed. And that began the story of these puppies. And the first story talked about Ollie and Molly, how they were rescued. And then I enjoyed writing that. And the second one, I found that people are much involved in history, especially in this area, since we're at the seat of government. And the second book is Ollie and Molly at Bull Run. And then the third one, of course, is a fun one that my wife and I, Anne, we did it together, and it's Ollie and Molly meet Santa. And in their adventure, they learn about something called polar time and how Santa gets to move through time at such speeds. And we learn about his wife, Abigail Claus. And the reader will also find out about a special gift that Santa gave Ollie and Molly. So there are a lot of fun books. They're well illustrated. And they're just a lot of fun to write. And I enjoy writing them. I have another one in the works right now, and it's going to be another historical type of book. But the books are, all three are available through Amazon. So I think I've gotten to enjoy children's books. They're a lot more fun than writing technical books and things. And people seem to be very happy with them. And I'm glad that I get the chance to offer a little bit of joy in people's lives, especially at Christmas time. And that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gary. Evelyn Huckleberry, can you tell us some about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Evelyn Amelia Huckleberry, which is a pseudonym representing my two grandmothers. Both of my grandmothers have been immensely influential. One was wildly adventurous, always encouraging new things, and the other was very gentle and curious, playful, and deeply rooted in her faith. So because of their investment in me throughout my life, the central character of my books, over my shoulder here, Picklepenny, has come to life as a fun, relatable friend for everybody. That's about it. As a writer, this is also, like some of you, not my day job, but it's certainly just a fun endeavor. And I'm happiest when I'm writing and illustrating these books.
Thanks, Evelyn. Etaine, do you want to tell us some about you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Etaine Raphael. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., and my husband and two daughters and I live now in Springfield, Virginia. And I was a physical therapist for the first part of my adult life, mostly at Walter Reed, working in the amputee section with a lot of the men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And I just kind of dipped into my creative side when I would get home as a bit of an escape from all of that, and started just writing and drawing and just really enjoying that, especially when my girls were little and they would help me with it. And I started substituting in preschools and just getting really inspired by the kids there and a lot of their stories. And I just found I loved reading those children's books as much as they did. And I just thought I would love to be a part of that community. So I had my Words Take Flight came out this past August, and it's all inspired by my family and their friends and the issues that they're dealing with. And then my first book, A Blueberry Day, came out in 2020, and that's just about time in nature and enjoying the simple things in life. I just try to have simple morals in each story. And I've just found that I gravitate towards inclusion and empathy and friendship, dealing with issues with those areas, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Lawanda, do you want to tell us some about yourself?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on and being a part of the panel. As stated, my name is Lawanda Warden. Like many of you, this is not my primary profession and job. I'm actually a veteran. I have been in the military for 24 years. I served in the medical field and currently live in the Prince William County area. My reason for writing books is really through my military experience and my journey, and then the different journeys and personal experiences that I have had in the military and in the medical field. I've written 2 books. One is Walking in the Footsteps of the Brave. I don't know if you can see it, maybe blurred out a little bit. And that is just my experience of living in Europe for 7 years and having the awesome opportunity to participate in a wreath layering ceremony. And then my other book is He Looks Like Me. And that is my experience just being in the military and sharing with one of my closest friends who recently lost her life through cancer and her journey as a nurse. And so that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Lawanda. Charlotte, would you like to tell us some about yourself?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So, like everybody has identified, this is a side thing, more of a passion. I think the one author who was a substitute, I kind of followed in that same footsteps. I've been a substitute for a long time, and I enjoyed reading to the kids and everything. And my book is about my dog, Lumpy left Melonhead. And I just really wanted to go into the schools and read this book and maybe have Lumpy join me and, snuggle with the kids. But it really was about paying I guess, honor to the dogs at the park. And I don't know, I just wanted to give Lumpy the best life he could have. He did have a good puppet, so I just kind of thought this would be a good way to honor him, and also have the kids learn some things, because my book talks about eating breakfast and getting exercise and having careers and reading and cleaning up your toys and everything like that. So I kind of wanted to give kids hey, these are the things that we should be doing, or maybe not. I don't know, but I just wanted to give some type of fun stuff in life and in the world. So, all right. Yeah.
So our second question, we're gonna tell us about your books. Why did you decide to write children's books specifically? Corrinne, would you like to start?
Sure. So I love, like others have mentioned, I love reading children's books, and I've also taught middle school English for a while. The inspiration for A Day in the Life of a Shoe, which is actually the first book that I wrote, came after reading about the Little Rock Nine. So again, it goes back to kind of me learning and then wanting to share that, what I learned with a young audience. And I just think children's books are fun, picture books are fun, and they're just as much fun to write. Someone else mentioned compassion, incorporating compassion in their stories. And because A Day in the Life of a Shoe is a historical or creative nonfiction type of story about an event in history that is really, involves a lot of emotion, involves a lot of, negative feelings. I wanted to share the story in a way that resonated with young audiences, but also help them understand the emotions that go along with these events, and that sometimes I know in learning about history, we can feel a little disconnected from the actual event. But bringing in that discussion of how this shoe, which is the main character, it's actually a shoe belonging to one of the Little Rock Nine that's telling the story. And so in using this shoe, I was able to insert emotion without assuming that I understood the actual people's emotions in this event. And so compassion, understanding, kindness are all themes in A Day in the Life of a Shoe that I wanted to share with a really young audience.
Thanks so much. Gary, can you tell us some more about your books and why you decided to write children's books?
Being rescued by my daughter-in-law and son. And as I started to write the story, it's interesting when you're writing with, especially with like Ollie and Molly type characters, and the dogs really portray two real dogs, and they have their own character, and they develop, they know how to talk back to you with their barking and so on and so forth. But as you continue the stories, the characters almost start to tell their own stories. And if you go along with them, it becomes easier and easier. Like if you take a walk with them on a bull run, they run around, they look at these animals, and pretty soon you're starting to follow them, and you're starting to get into their head, and you're seeing everything through their eyes. And this is pretty much the story is written, seeing Santa or Bull Run or everything through their eyes, and you sort of the characters, they really do take on they sort of develop the stories themselves, and all I have to do is just write it down, and it's quite something very very enjoyable. And then it just the third book, Ollie and Molly Meet Santa, it was sort of easy to write because it was fun, and the characters had started to develop themselves. One thing happened to Ollie on his trip to Bull Run is he broke a tooth, and then he had a gold tooth put in. And so as the story develops with Santa, all of a sudden Santa and the reindeer, they sort of look and say, what the heck is that shiny thing shining out of Ollie's mouth? And so the story starts to develop, and all these little things that you add into the story, they produce the character, and it just becomes more fun each time. And it's really a pleasure to write. And I'm just happy that I can do it. It's totally enjoyable. Everybody should try it once.
Thanks so much, Gary. Evelyn, do you want to tell us some more about your books and why you decided to write children's fiction?
Sure, thank you. The first book that I've published is Picklepenny, Wonders and Wanders. And I write children's poetry told from the character of Picklepenny. The poems are written in rhyming couplets about subjects that are meaningful to children. So balloons, skipping, Grammy's house, snow, things like that. I'm also the illustrator. So in those drawings, I aim to provide really vibrant colors and images that have little surprises throughout. So there might be something to pick out and recognize that an observant child might have some fun with. There's a bunny who is throughout all of the books. There's a cardinal. I don't know how well my image comes out. You can see the bunny here on one of these covers. So that's been a lot of fun. And in reading with children, they like to try to find the bunny or the cardinal, depending. And then you also asked the question about why we decided to write children's books. And mine goes back to when I was 12 years old. My sister had mono, and she was out of school for several weeks. And to lift her spirits, we would read Shel Silverstein books. And we would read these poems together. And as her sickness wore on, we ran out of books. So I started writing my own poems for my sister, which was really fun and entertained us very much so. In fact, when I started writing the Picklepenny series, I still have my journals from when I was 12 years old, where all these poems are recorded. And I was hoping that I could use some of that material for Picklepenny. And I'll just say that my tastes have become a little more sophisticated. My skills have been sharpened. So there wasn't a lot of material there. I was able to use one of the poems. But until my interest in children's poetry was rather dormant, I have purchased Shel Silverstein books for nieces and cousins, and for baby showers and things like that. But more recently, I was in I was a program manager for a very dry. The work was important, but it was also very dry. So I was primed for some creativity. And one morning I woke up and all of these playful rhymes and these vibrant illustrations in my mind just providentially started pouring out of me. And not too long after that, I published my first book, Picklepenny Wonders and Wanders. And I've since written several more, all waiting publication. I have the first one behind me, and just for the sake of our audience here, this is the one that's the only one that's been published so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn. Etaine, do you want to tell us some more about your books and why you decided to write children's?
Sure. Well, my first book, A Blueberry Day, came about. I never intended to write a book. I never really thought about it growing up. And we have been vacationing in Maine every summer. That's where my father-in-law used to live. And we have a blueberry field out front of the cabin. And we just had all these amazing pictures from our first vacation there. And so when I got home, I put together a photo book, and I just thought, oh, it would be fun to write a little poem to go along with the pictures, because I did used to love writing poetry in college. And so I did that, and it was very fun and rewarding, and I forgot about it for a couple years. And then it's just kind of one of these things where at nighttime it would wake me up in a way that my day job never did. I was always so tired, but the words and ideas for pictures would wake me up, and I would have to get out my notes section on my phone and just write it down, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. And then thinking, I'm going to just try to get this out in the world and see if there's some level of appreciation for it outside of my family. And it's just been so fun to work on, and just coming up with new ideas that are hopefully relatable outside of our family. Yeah.
Thank you. Lawanda, do you want to tell us more about your books and why you decided to write for children?
So the reason why I decided to write for children, I actually was inspired by my nieces, who at the time were 12 and 16. So I am from a military family. My sister is in the military also. And while my sister was stationed at West Point, my god sister, and you may have heard about her, Second Lieutenant Emily J.T. Perez. She was one of the individuals that lost her life. And so my nieces decided I want a way to channel my energy and just to share how great she was. And so they started writing a children's book, and they would allow me to read just information on it and look at their illustrations. And from there, I was like, wow, they're so young, but they had an idea, and they published a book called Emily's Way. And so, as I stated before, through my military experience and journey, while stationed in Germany, I had the awesome opportunity to participate in a wreath laying ceremony. And it was about 11 African-American men who fought during the Battle of the Bulge. And just their bravery, I had the opportunity to actually, in the winter in December, during the Battle of the Bulge took place, but to walk the trail that they actually walked. And so I wanted other children to learn about their bravery, and just that you can do anything that you have put your mind to, and you can accomplish greatness, and that everyone is unique. And so that's why I wrote Walking in the Footsteps of the Brave. And then He Looks Like Me. So this is, as I stated, about the first African-American Secretary of Defense through the eyes of a little girl named Sonia. She was never a state legislative or a person, but she was unique in her own way. And what she did was she made everyone who came in contact with her feel special. And so those are the two reasons why I wrote my book.
Thank you, Lawanda. Charlotte, do you want to tell us some more about your books and why you decided to write for children? Sorry, Charlotte, we can't hear you yet. Thanks.
I am muted. So my book, I started really taking photos of Lumpy way back in the day. And as I was doing it, I was like, wow, these are great pictures. And I loved him so much. And I just wanted to share the joy with him with other people. So they're all just like pictures of him and in a story format, just talking about things and how to do stuff. And I figured this was like I said, a great way to introduce doing things or aspiring to do things or getting exercise, but from a dog's point of view. Because in the book he actually gets lost and then he finds a forever home, and I just I don't know, I just really wanted to be able to bring what I loved about Lumpy to other kids. So that's why I guess I wrote the children's book. And then I decided to, after that, to try to get it translated into other languages. And so hopefully by Christmas, they'll come out with the other languages. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks. So let's go on to our next question. Let's start with Corrinne. What was one of the most surprising things you learned in creating your books?
Wow. So I did, one of the reasons why I published the books myself was I wanted to go through the whole process from start to finish and kind of do it myself. So one of the most surprising things was just how efficient publishing a book can be. From finding an illustrator to finding a printer to kind of getting the samples and putting it all together. It was a really fun process, and it took about 6 months total. And I just really enjoyed the process. So I learned a lot about different types of printing styles. And for instance, I don't know if you can see this in Moja, there is kind of a shiny, the text is a little bit shinier than the rest of the book. So I loved like getting samples of different types of book covers and even inside pages, and then making decisions on it. But overall, I felt that the process was really efficient, and in working with other professionals and seeing them put their stamp on the book. For instance, with the illustrations for both Moja and the Lion and A Day in the Life of a Shoe, I would describe to the illustrators what I wanted to see on each page, and they would do their magic. And I love being able to do that, share my vision, and then have them come up with something that might even look better than I imagined. And that happened a lot of the time.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, Gary, do you want to tell us what was one of the most surprising things that you learned while you were creating your books?
I can't draw. I can't do much of anything, So I went on to a company called Fiverr, and they have all these talented people worldwide. And I found an illustrator that could do these illustrations very well, very nicely, and put a little bit of joy and humor into as they develop the illustrations. But to my amazement, I had no idea that when you look at the worldwide, there are a gazillion illustrators that are super sharp, and then the people that do the production and layout, that as they're doing it, they say, hey, Gary, you should do it this way. Hey, Gary, if you put it this way, it's going to look better. Hey, Gary, if you do it. And so you get all this help. And for somebody that's starting out, doesn't know much of anything, and to get all these people helping you, it was an honor, first of all, to have all these talented people helping me. And then they would ask certain questions, like for the Ollie Molly meet Santa, they were like, what are you going to put in there that's going to be different? And then as I researched these things, I found out a lot of people didn't know why the war between the states actually developed the way it did, because things have changed the way people of history. So I talked about Lincoln's primary reason for the war. And then at the end, I put in a question about who actually caused the war. And when you put in those types of things, people get really interested in the books. And it makes me learn more about my history of the United States and my appreciation of the role of the United States in the world and how it developed and so on and so forth. So it becomes very much of an honor to write these books, especially if you're doing historical books about our country. And it's just, it's an honor to write them now. I feel very privileged to write them and let people read them and learn about history, or especially something happy is about Ollie and Molly meet Santa. I mean, how can you not like that face? I mean, Ollie and Molly. I mean, so you have to develop these illustrations, and as you develop them, you get an appreciation, and the reader gets an appreciation for the characters and the humor that's involved around them. And I think people need a lot of humor right now, and enjoy, and they need a lot of some different perspectives on Santa Claus and so on and so forth, and polar time and so on. So how Santa moves through time. So it's a lot of fun, and people seem to enjoy them, and it's an honor for me to write them.
Thanks, Gary. Evelyn, do you want to tell us what was the most surprising thing that you learned when creating your books?
Sure, thank you. So we received these questions that we're getting right now in advance, and I've appreciated the time to reflect, particularly on this question. Creating these books have brought lots of surprises. So I was trying to discern which ones to share. First, I think the support of my husband, Joe, has spoken volumes. It's been heartwarming to see how this book and this character of Picklepenny have enriched our relationship in new and fun ways, whole new topics to talk about on walks and things like that. The same goes for our faith life and our relationship with God, how this Picklepenny character just has crashed into our relationships. It's been really fun. But a second surprise, I have just really enjoyed this character, Picklepenny. I've also been surprised how much others have enjoyed this playful character. It's been really enjoyable to see my friends and their children enjoy Picklepenny. I've been sent videos of their children laughing because of the poetry. And one of my friends, her son was eating a sandwich, and he pulled the pickle out of the sandwich, and it was in the same shape that you often see Picklepenny illustrated throughout the books. And he pulled it out and he said, Picklepenny. And that was really fun. And then I have a cousin in California, and they were at a swap meet, and it was an avocado, but there was a stuffed avocado hanging in one of the little kiosks. And my cousin's little daughter said, Picklepenny, pointing up at it was an avocado, but it still, that has been just a really fun surprise to see how other people are, brought joy through this process.
Wonderful. Thanks, Evelyn. Etaine, do you want to tell us what was the most surprising thing that you learned while writing your children's books?
Sure. I would say I had no idea how much work went into creating a little book. You think, I have a friend who writes young adult novels, and I just thought picture books, once you get the art down, everything should kind of come together. And going through the editorial process was really eye-opening. And I learned so much just about why the word count should be the word count in a certain age range, or why it's so important if you write in rhyme to have a very set meter throughout. And I never had thought about that, but then I realized my favorite books all had those elements, and I didn't know it at the time, how much work and thought went into it, how there is usually a conflict of some sort with the story arc, and it's resolved at the end, but you also don't want it to be too preachy. You want it to be a little funny. And it was just really fun to try to figure out how to work my ideas around these elements that I wanted to keep in my books as well. And so it was a lot of hard work, and it was so much fun at the same time. So it surprised me how much I enjoyed it.
Thanks so much. So Lawanda, do you want to tell us what's the most surprising thing you learned creating your books?
So thank you. I would like to echo everything that everyone else has said. Gary said it was so many illustrators to choose from. And so that in itself sometimes can be overwhelming. Who is the best person to actually choose? I like where Etaine talked about the words matter. Not having the words to be so big, but simple words to really get to your targeted audience. And then Evelyn, what was great about bringing individuals together. So the illustrator who did my first book is the same illustrator who did my second book. And how I looked up or met him is only God, because I just went on a search. He responded to me, and he actually was just new in the business himself. So he was looking for work as well as I was just looking for someone to help share my story. You also need to have someone, for me, that is going to be honest, that's going to say, hey, Lawanda, that does not make sense, and read it. One of the things I think that was fortunate for me was he shared that I need to have a listening session. So when he put all the illustrations together, he said, take individuals who know about the military and who don't know about the military and share this book with them and see what they think. That was so helpful, because I'll tell you, I was at an actual signing and there were children who knew nothing about the military. They may have seen uniforms, but they didn't know anything about it. They did not have family members that were actually part of the military. So all of those things were surprising for me. And it took me longer. I know some people are saying it took them 8 months, but my first book probably took me about 1.5 years. It was just a very tedious, long process, but it was very rewarding because at the end, the book actually inspired others.
Thank you, Lawanda. Charlotte, would you like to tell us what was the most surprising thing that you learned in creating your books?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Sorry, you're breaking up just a little bit there, Charlotte. You want to try it again?
Yeah, am I unmuted now? Is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So I didn't struggle with the illustration part. I have an art background and photography background, so that kind of came natural to me. Also, I have a desktop publishing background. So I think for me, the most, it's not surprising, but yeah, I didn't realize there was so much administrative stuff. If you didn't go through a service to publish your book, but you did everything by yourself, like got your ISBN number, got your Library of Congress number, did all that stuff. I didn't go with a print on demand. I went with a traditional printer. So all of that stuff was just a couple more hoops to jump through that you had to figure out. So I think that was the most surprising. My illustrator said to me, he was very happy that I took care of all that, because if he had to do it, he said he would have just tapped out. So, but I think the biggest surprise is when you put it out there and you're just really worried about whether or not people are going to like the book, and then you find out that people actually do. It's a nice, happy surprise, I guess. I have a friend who says to me that her daughter hates the book. And I said, why? She said, because it's the only book her son wants to read. And they are so tired of having to read it. But it was a good love or a good hate of the book, because he was actually reading it and stuff. But they were just so tired of having to read it, because that's all he wanted to read. So anyway, those are, I guess, the surprise that I with my book.
Thank you, Charlotte. So let's go to our next question. Corrinne, we'll start with you. What are the challenges of being an indie writer?
I think one of the challenges for me was that I financed everything myself. So that can, when you're dealing with money, that's always challenging. Before I decided to be an indie writer, I actually did send my manuscript to different houses. So it's also challenging to be rejected so many times, but I think along the way, I did get some encouraging words, even in my rejection letters, that made me think, okay, even though they don't want this, it's still a viable product. And then the other really challenging thing for me was marketing, like finding the time and also the money for marketing. That's huge. And so initially, after publishing A Day in the Life of a Shoe, I did a lot of book fairs, author signings, and a lot of those you're paying for space to sell your book and to do the signing. So that was a big part of the marketing, but it also took a lot of financing. And so those are probably the biggest challenges for me.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's go on to Gary. So what are some of the biggest challenges for you, Gary?
When you first look at it, well, it's not going to be a big problem. But as you get into it, there are a lot of components. And you think, well, there's only one or two. Well, there's a lot more. And everything has to be done. There's some that have to be done in a very specific way. There's sort of constraints or rules and regulations that you have to follow. And others, it's open. And it's always nice if you have some sort of person or people that can be advocates for you. And fortunately for the people that I found that did my illustration and the layouts and so on and so forth, they were my advocates, and they helped me along the process. Being an independent writer is it's not easy, but it can be fun. It's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. And if you just if you take the advice of a lot of good people that are helping you, your advocates, it'll become a lot easier to put these books into production. I went the Amazon route. I didn't want to get involved in anything else because it's too time consuming at my particular point right now. But Amazon, for me, they're very helpful in marketing. They have a host of ways to expose your book to their particular audience, and they have got a worldwide audience. I mean, they sell a gazillion books, so I find that I've learned a lot from them in the marketing area. And as time permits, and as well, it's mostly a lot of time as time permits, and the expense involved. Market will move around, and I'll do more things, and then may look for a particular publisher. But right now I'm just having fun putting them out. I've gotten some compliments from the Fairfax and people in the Fairfax library system that have somehow contacted me and said, I enjoyed this particular story. I didn't know about polar time or, some things. So that sort of encourages you to think, well, all this work isn't in vain. People are actually enjoying it. So that means a lot. So the challenges they've been significant. Well, no, they're not significant. There's been enough challenges, but I've also had a lot of people that have helped me along the way, and I have always appreciated that.
Thanks, Gary. So let's go on to Evelyn. What are some of the biggest challenges for you?
Okay, I really appreciate this question. Several of us could relate to the themes of empathy and compassion in our books, and I'm feeling those things from our present community of practice here with the Fairfax County Library indie writers. So thank you. I hear your challenges. I can relate, especially to that business side, that the marketing. And thank you, Corrinne, for mentioning that. I am with you. I think for me too, COVID, because I'm newly published, COVID has really been disruptive for getting involved in local activities. When you're entering the publishing world, the self-publishing world, there's all these ideas to hype up your book and signing events. And as I've tried to initiate those, well, the timing's not right with COVID. We're not doing those right now. So that's really been an impediment to some of the, some of my enthusiasm for getting this out and doing that piece of it. So yeah, the business side, as opposed to the creative side of publishing, has been the most challenging for me. I have no problem to sit in a cozy chair with my iPad and Photoshop and working on illustrations or writing the poem. That is just a joyful place to be. But then getting out there, that marketing and the stumping and things like that's a challenge. So, thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn. Etaine, do you want to tell us about some of the challenges that you've encountered?
Sure. I think we're all very like-minded, probably introverts if I'm correct, but I would be happy to just paint and write all day long and not have to do the other stuff. And I'm also just not great on computers. And so it's just really put me in my challenge and panic zone to even take on self-publishing. I try to do, say, hardback and paperback at Ingram Spark and paperback and ebook at Amazon. And of course, they all have different templates, and it's all just kind of my worst fears being realized on those days, because nothing is ever formatted correctly. And it takes me probably a couple months once I'm at that point to get it all right. So that's always hard. It's been very hard with that. And now just trying to transition into the digital art is a huge learning curve, but I think it's going to be really rewarding once I can draw on the iPad and simplify my life in that way, instead of just taking pictures of all my artwork and trying to format a book out of that. I would say that's been the most challenging. And I just have to say so much to the Fairfax County Libraries, because it is everything in me to be able to take my books in and have them have a home with you guys, because it's, for shy or introverted people, it just takes so much to be able to walk through the doors of anywhere and to just feel like you're not only accepted, but you're appreciated there. It means a lot to us, I know. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate our indie authors 100%. All right. Lawanda, do you want to tell us about any of the challenges that you've had in creating your books?
So I think that my colleagues have actually said it all. I mean, the marketing, COVID has created a challenge that in a traditional, before COVID, we would be able to go in, do book signings, go door to door. You can't even go door to door to, if it's a CDC or a library, to even get in because of just the many restrictions that are involved. And then one of the things that Corrinne discussed was, not having that big publishing company to actually back you, which, now you have to not only worry about your marketing, but your credibility of actually being a writer. So all of those things pose a challenge.
Thank you, Lawanda. Charlotte, do you have anything to add?
So I think we all have the same with a damper on everybody. I personally love going out and doing readings, interacting with the kids, seeing what they have to say, because my book is very interactive. There's a lot of WH questions, and so that just brought a lot of joy to me, just to see how kids, what goes on in their minds and stuff like that. One of the questions in my book is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's great to hear kids go, I want to be a unicorn hunter. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's go with that one. But I think that was the biggest thing. Because I didn't go traditional print on demand, and I went with an actual a printing press. Because COVID shut that down, going out to the book readings, it forced me to have to change everything into print on demand, which is fine. But I believe it was Etaine who had said how, just having to readjust the scaling of her books and stuff. I too had to face that, and it's I feel like you're never finished. You keep tweaking stuff, or you're going to come up with another one, and so it's always an ongoing process. So.
Thank you, Charlotte. All right, let's move on to a next question. We'll start with Corrinne again. What advice do you have for writers that are trying to follow the same journey? Or just for writers in general?
Just for writers in general, I think a lot of the things that we've already touched on, just keep writing. I think sometimes it can be easy to try to critique our writing or edit in the process, but maybe just get it all out. If you're struggling to get it out on paper, just get it out. And also, Lawanda touched on this, you also have other people read it too, and give their feedback even before you go into publishing, especially if you're self-publishing or you're an indie author. Have several people read it and hear all their different perspectives, and don't be afraid of that. The feedback is a gift. So get as much feedback as you can.
Thank you. Gary, do you have anything to add?
Begin, and the way I do it, we have approached writing in general, but specifically the children's book, is I just put pen to paper. It's sort of anything that comes out of my mind, I just start putting it down, and it just flows and flows and flows and flows. Then I start to, in a day or two, I start to look at it and I say, well, this has some merit. This is like corny, or it doesn't make any sense at all, or who cares? And then this part, has some interest. And then but that's part of the editing process. And then as you go through this, a story begins to form. Once you get that story starting to form and these characters are actually doing something and developing, then you can begin to add very specific qualities, characteristics, specific adventures to your characters. And each character, like Ollie, for Ollie and Molly, Ollie is very adventurous, very impromptu, And Molly is very pragmatic and always asks, hey, Ollie, what are you doing that for? You know, are we sure you want to do that? Especially when they got involved with Santa, because Ollie just decided to jump into Santa's toy sack. And Molly was, wait a minute, I don't think so, you know. And so these characters start to develop, each has their own personality. And now you have a conflict of personalities, you know, and each one is, and Ollie says, oh, come on, Molly, be more adventurous. You know, don't be come on and jump in the sack with me, you know. And it becomes easier and easier. But first and foremost, I always just take a blank piece of paper and I just let everything flow from my mind. And then I start to edit it very stringently. And the story will be in the story will form, and then you just start to add to the story. And I found that to be the best recipe for developing storybooks. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Evelyn, what do you have to say?
Sure, I would definitely echo those sentiments about having attentive friends who can listen and provide honest feedback. But I would also say I would encourage writers to enjoy the process and not to force it. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Evelyn. That's good advice. Etaine?
Sure, thanks. I would say my best advice would be to join. For me, I'm on Facebook, so I've joined several author and illustrator groups and cover critique groups, because I think the cover, if you don't have a known name, is really what is going to sell your book. And there is, I wouldn't say a formula, but there are better ways than others to do a cover that are research based, and in terms of like how the eyes track colors that tend to sell better, keeping those things in mind, trying to detach a little bit about how you feel personally about it, and really listening to what the people around you are saying. And then to just do it, to just like give yourself a time frame and work really, really hard on it, and do it. Because I feel like I'm so excited right now on my third book, because I feel like I've loosened up a little bit in my style, and I can bring more natural humor into it, where if I were still stressing over the first one and making it perfect, I wouldn't have learned everything that I've learned since then. So do it, do your best at it, have fun with it, and then move on to the next one. And you're going to learn something new each time you go through it. Thanks.
Etaine. Lawanda, how about you? What advice would you give to other writers?
So the only thing I would add to everything that has already been said is that if you are passionate about writing, then continue, because everyone has a story to tell or something exciting to share with others. Especially positive messages can make a difference in others' journey, and they can serve as strong motivation for others to start writing as well.
Thanks, Lawanda. Charlotte, what kind of advice would you give to fellow writers?
So I definitely, can you hear me? So I definitely agree with get other people to read your book. Before I had other people read it, it was an okay book. Then my one friend said, "Hey, you might try doing this," which was great. So it changed the whole dynamic of the book, which then changed the photos, etc., etc. But the big takeaway I think for me is think about your target audiences and what words you choose. In today's world, we're so concerned about hurting other people's feelings, being cognizant of other organizations or people or lifestyles. So try to make sure that your words, I guess, don't offend other people or could be mistaken or misconstrued. I had to really scrutinize on certain words and say, if I say this, how does it make it sound? Or if I say this, how does it make it sound? And, I didn't want to put someone in a bad light or make it sound like something was negative. So I just really felt like what words I picked were very, very crucial on the message that you're going to give to your audience.
Thanks, Charlotte. All right, let's go to our next question. What are you currently working on, if anything at all? Is anybody working on anything? Let's start with Corrinne.
Yes, so I have written another children's book. Actually, I wrote it about several years ago, have been waiting to publish, waiting for the right time. It's a book about competitive eating, and it's written in rhyme. My first book written in rhyme. And so that I'm working on publishing that one.
That sounds fun. Thanks, Corrinne. All right. Gary, are you working on anything right now?
Ollie and Molly at Valley Forge, and this will take place with the encampment of General Washington at Valley Forge. And the things that were going through his mind as he's looking at his troops, looking at the Congress and what they're doing and not doing for them, and what they're, well, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of things that take place that haven't really been amplified very much and haven't been talked about. And so it's going to be more through General Washington's eyes as he addressed the troops, and through the troops' eyes, because the two are at a crossroads, and the war could go either way for what's become the United States. So I think people will be very. I think people learn a lot that they didn't see before in what happened at Valley Forge. It takes a while to research the things, and you have to, talk to people that the older people. If I was fortunate, I'm not young anymore, so I've had a chance to talk to people from World War I. I even had a chance to talk to one gentleman from the Civil War when I was little. I wish I was older because I could have asked more questions, but so I've had an opportunity to talk to people through time, and you learn a lot from these people and what's going through their eyes as they're participating in this war that they didn't want to get involved in, but they were almost conscripted to take part into. So it should be interesting. I think people learn a lot, and I'm trying to put some humor into it from Ollie and Molly's perspective, because they always look at it very simplistically, and they don't have all these intellectual arguments and that go nowhere and talk about nothing, but they're very specific and very succinct and to the point. And so that's what I'm trying to develop, and I hope people will enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Evelyn, what are you working on right now?
Thank you. Yes, I am bursting at the seams. It could be that I'm so enmeshed now in the marketing world that the other side of me seems to be especially inspired, wanting to go back into the creativity. But I have several more books written and illustrated, all ready to be published. Just have to hit send to my publisher, but we're not that far yet. And in the meantime, I have several books storyboarded, including a series, Picklepenny, kind of goes through the calendar year, experiences the seasons. All children's poetry, the same way that it's been, with these rhyming couplets. So one of the next ones my husband thinks should be next in the series is this one about Picklepenny exploring various career choices. So to be determined, we'll see, but thank you.
Very neat. Thanks, Evelyn. Etaine, what are you working on right now?
Hi, I'm working on, so the last book I just published was about the power of your words and how they have the ability to affect others positively or negatively, and we just need to think and reflect. So in trying to figure out a theme for the next book, I just realized I really just want it to be about encouraging kids to think and reflect. And at that point in time, my youngest was going through a very pessimistic stage, and it was exhausting. And I'm just thinking, how can we get you to see things a little differently? So it's about looking for silver linings in things and validating absolutely whatever is going on that's upsetting, but then also trying to find the good in every scenario there. Yeah. Thank you.
Lawanda?
I am actually working on a children's book about an 83-year-old nurse who is working on the COVID line. So she's at Inova Hospital, and she vaccinates patients who come in who want to be vaccinated for COVID-19. And so hopefully you'll see something soon.
Wow, thank you, Lawanda. And Charlotte, what are you working on?
So I'm not really writing another book. I might, but right now I'm working on getting the Lumpy book translated into Spanish and German, and hopefully Chinese and French and some other languages. So that's where my efforts are going towards when I'm not working. And then I'm just doing another book for myself. I wrote a play a long time ago. I'm going to try to maybe write it into a book. So we'll see.
Thanks so much. All right, so one last question before we go to our Q&A. Let's start with Corrinne again. Where can people find your books? You can tell us about it, and then if you want to drop a link in the chat, you can do that too.
Sure. So you can find both books, A Day in the Life of a Shoe and Moja and the Lion, on calicopress.com. And I put the link in there. I'm going to retype it for everyone, calicopress.com. And you can also find A Day in the Life of a Shoe on Amazon.
Wonderful, thanks. Gary, where can people find yours? You said Amazon, correct?
It's on Amazon, and you can either type in my name, Gary Garner, or type in Ollie and Molly series, and it'll bring you right to all three books. And the latest one, Ollie and Molly Meets Santa. Thank you.
Very nice. Evelyn, where can people find your books?
Well, you could go to picklepennybooks.com. You could go to my publisher, Westbow Press, and it's also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Either of those would get you there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Etaine, where can people find your books?
They could find me on Amazon, and they can find me at Politics and Prose in DC if they're ever there, and in the Fairfax County Libraries. Thanks.
Wonderful. Lawanda, where can people find your books?
They can find them at With Essential Means. That's WITHESSENTIALMEANS.com. And it's also on Mackin, Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million.
Wow, thank you. And Charlotte, where can we find your books?
So you can go to lumpymelonhead.com for a personalized and autograph copy, or you can just go to Amazon or Books A Million. Those are all print on demand, so they're a little bit, they come directly from Amazon or wherever, so that they're not autographed and they're not personalized. And the difference also is the end pages as well. In the copies that you get from me, the end pages all have like pictures and everything, but the ones that you get on Amazon and stuff, the end pages aren't this. These pictures are on another page. So that's where you can get the book. So, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So for those of you that are participating, we're going to move into a Q&A. So if anyone has a question that you want to ask one or all of these authors, you can type it into the chat. And then I can ask, we can have them answer it. So now is your time if there's any question that you have. And in the meantime, I'll just go back and see if anything was asked. So someone did ask for additional info about what an indie author is. Yes, that's an independent author that self-publishes. So all week long, we're hosting events for Indie Author Day. So you can go to our website, you can check our calendar, and you can register for these events in advance. We will be having another one tomorrow. I'll drop that link in the chat as well. That will be a second panel of other children's authors. Let's see. Someone had asked, do any of you present your book through a video on YouTube or other platform? And Charlotte said that she does. Does anyone else do that? Etaine, do you do that?
Sorry, I set up a YouTube channel and I have every intention of doing that soon, but not yet.
Right.
And I also, on calicopress.com, you can find a reading of both of the stories. It's done not by me, actually, it's done by another YouTuber. And she has a vlog where her children read books. She does homeschooling, and so they're reading both stories.
Wonderful. Okay, so Renee had asked, she says, I want to write, but I struggle making the time. When do you write? What advice can you offer wannabe writers? That's an excellent question. When do you write? Does anyone want to take that question?
So this sounds horrible, but I get up extra early. I find that my brain is most empty right when I wake up. And so I kind of dedicate that time to it until, when people start going to work or other things start bombarding your brain. Some people like to do it at nighttime. At nighttime, I've got so much stuff in my head that I'm like, I can't be bothered, and I want to go to bed. But you have to schedule it like going to the doctors, or this is your time, like going to the gym or doing a yoga class. You have to put it in your schedule. Like, this is the time I'm going to sit down and actually dedicate to it. So.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have anything to add? Evelyn?
I could just say, sure, thank you. If a schedule allows, I have found writing to be most successful when it can be organically driven. One time I was late to meet my mom for, I forget, we were getting lunch or something, and I was late. And a poem, a Picklepenny poem, popped into my head, and I ended up titling it "Running Late." And so for me, it's been, more of an organic. Not if I set the time. For me, it put pressure. Oh no, I set apart these few hours. I was going to write. What should I write about? Or it needs to come to me now. So my process has been very organic. When the ideas come, if I can afford to set the time aside, I devote that attention. It also helps that I write, poems as opposed to, a longer narrative. But that's how it's worked for me.
And I'll just piggyback on Evelyn, because that's how it works for me sometimes. Sometimes I do need to set aside time, but then also it helps to just have either your phone or just something to write with you, handy wherever you are. And that way, when something comes to mind, you can just jot it down and then, put it together later when you have more time.
Anyone have anything else to add on that question? Nope. So we have a question here in the chat. Someone has said, do you have any tips on recording a video of a book reading? And just for clarification, they mean a video that talks about your work. So have any of you done like a book trailer kind of marketing for your books? Oh, Lawanda, I think your mic's not on. Oops.
Okay, sorry about that. That's a great question. I did do a trailer but I actually went through Upworks. I think that's another platform where you can have individuals do actual trailer. And it came out pretty, I mean, I was happy with the end product. And I actually placed that on Twitter. And then when I send out emails to maybe schools, Fairfax County, I include that trailer in it so that our teachers and librarians can see the trailer as well.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any additional questions? You can type them in the chat. Charlotte, did you have something to add? Oh, yeah.
No, I just have a question for Lawanda. How much of her trailer did she give away? Meaning, did you record the whole book, or did you leave a cliffhanger? How did you guys how much did you incorporate into the trailer?
So pretty much we put some of the information in the book in there, and then we put motivational words, you can be anything, words of inspiration and empowerment. I'm actually, when you were asking that question, I was gonna actually place the actual link in the chat so you can see what it looks like. And like I said, it was very inexpensive. I don't know if I spent $25, and it was well worth it. And you actually in Upwork, just as Gary said, you have a list of individuals you can choose from. You tell them what your price is, you give that to them, and then you pick whichever one that you want to go with. And then they give you 4 or 5 days, and it's a turnaround time. And they're from all over the world. I worked with someone, I think she was actually in Europe, and I've worked with someone before that is in Africa. So it just depends on what you want to use.
Funny, because I work in television and film, but I haven't even done something like that. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should, but I just this is good. This is good.
I found for myself that I selectively sent out an extra copy of the book to different people around the country. And it seems to have worked out well. And as far as going back to how I keep track of, for a story, I use a pen and paper. And anything that comes into my mind, I just jot it down quickly, and pretty soon I have a collection of notebook full of ideas and statements or stories or particular lines that I want to include. And then I go into my cave and I start to put it all together. But as far as getting things out, I find out if I just send out a book, that it works out very well for me. They have something very specific to see, and it's sort of a lost leader. And well, for me, it works out very well. I mean, I don't send out hundreds of them, but I very selectively send them out to different people, different companies, and so on and so forth. And it works out well. For example, one example would be in the Ollie and Molly Bull Run. In part of the story, the people, the family that has Ollie and Molly, they buy a boat. Well, the boat is a Bentley boat. It's a pontoon boat. It has a Evinrude engine. And then I send the book to Evinrude and send one to the people that build the boat. And they appreciate those types of things. And so that's selective loss leaders for me.
Thanks so much. So we're almost all out of time. I don't see any new questions. If anyone has a last minute question, you can go ahead and type it into the chat, or if there's anything else that our authors would like to discuss, we can go ahead and do that. Anybody have any last minute advice or suggestions or discussion topics?
I would just say keep writing, and I'm looking forward to seeing other authors and new authors, independent authors on these events with Fairfax County Public Libraries. And also I want to thank Fairfax County Public Libraries for having us here. Yay!
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. I've truly enjoyed it, and I know everyone else is going to too. All right, so without further ado, thank you again, authors, for being part of our panel and for sharing your experiences as writers. This has been just absolutely a pleasure. We hope to see everyone tomorrow at 12 p.m. for Let's Talk About Children's Books Part 2. You'll meet a second panel of children's authors as they discuss their books and journey as writers. I'm going to drop the link right here in the chat for everyone. There's no password. You can just join if you have time. We hope that we'll see you then. And again, thank you so much for participating, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.